Like, it take a real motherfucker to get sober.
Entrepreneurship is a mindset. It's not necessarily what you do. Because I promise you, if you're doing it for the right reasons, you will be okay.
What do we know about trauma scientifically? It changes the chemistry in the brain.
We can relate to one another, you know. That's why this camaraderie is so awesome, because we just get it and we don't judge.
You can't fight new battles with old tactics. Your thoughts become your words become your actions become your character becomes your destiny.
What do you want to be remembered by when you're gone?
What's grounded, fam? It's your boy Johnny Gio. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Grounded Phoenix podcast. Joining me today is Summer, aka Summer Stopped Drinking. What's grounded, Summer?
How's it going?
It's going good. It's going really good, actually. I'm glad to have you here. So Summer stopped drinking. Why? For what? For what reason? Like, I mean, why would you do that? Like, isn't drinking amazing? Isn't it?
Yeah, it's just the best in the world. No, well, it's good until it isn't, I guess. Yeah, so drinking was a part of my life for a really long time. And at a certain point, I knew it was a problem. I knew it was causing problems in my life. But I was really caught up in the idea of so many times throughout my life, I've Googled, am I an alcoholic? And take the test and see, okay, am I an alcoholic? And I was really caught up in this idea of okay, I don't drink every day.
Right.
I still have my job. I have 2 kids. I never lost my kids. I never, nothing.
Right.
I mean, bad things happened throughout my life, certainly, but nothing, epically, I didn't get a DUI, things like that. So I got really caught up in this idea of I'm fine, even though I knew I wasn't. Even though I knew it was causing massive problems in my life. So I didn't stop. It kept me going for a lot longer than I probably should have, because I got really caught up in the label and in the idea of it seems stupid to me now when I think about it, but I thought okay, so you either have to be having this massive issue where you're losing everything in your life, or you keep going. I didn't realize that there are all these shades in between, and of course you can stop at any time. Of course you can stop at any point. You can stop because it gives you a headache after you have 1 glass of wine. There's no reason why you can't stop, but I think I didn't want to. So I rationalized thinking that I didn't need to. But I finally did. So Summer stopped drinking.
Congratulations. So you talk about when you looked up, being an alcoholic. I never did that, and I actually labeled myself an alcoholic while I was drinking, and that song by Exhibit, I'm a fucking
Right.
I would bump that song, and that was my anthem. It's almost I took pride in it. Yeah, I wasn't an everyday drinker, but on the weekends and I was binge drinking, I was a fucking alcoholic, and I took pride in that. Did you ever have a sense of yeah, I can handle my drinking and I love drinking?
I would jokingly say, because I thought this was funny for some reason, I would be oh, I'm not an alcoholic, I'm just an alcohol abuser. That was funny to me. I'm yeah, I know I drink too much when I drink, but it's fine. I thought that was funny. So yeah, I think I definitely took pride in oh, I can outdrink any man. I can, I couldn't. I'd become an absolute idiot, but I believed that I could, and I did drink a whole lot on the occasions that I drank, so.
You could probably outdrink me for sure. I'm such a lightweight, It's ridiculous. I would need a sack of Coke, but even if I did, you'd probably still outdrink me.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't take pride in that anymore, but at the time, and that's why it's progressive. It's your tolerance, the more you drink and the longer you drink, your tolerance raises, of course, because of all the, I've done a lot of reading, and I've read a lot of the chemistry of what's happening in your brain,
right.
What happens, what addiction is in your brain, particularly with alcohol. I just remember always kind of having this sense of oh, that's not enough. I'm gonna need more for tonight. I have a bottle of wine, that's not gonna be enough. That kind of feeling. I always knew, especially in the past few years. So I've been alcohol free for 7 months now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But yeah, the past, I don't know. Probably since my oldest son was born. He's 7. He'll be 8 this summer. But really, once he was born, I got a sense that it was becoming a real problem. And I knew that I needed more and more to get to the point that I used to be able to get to with less. Which I knew in my mind was a bad thing, but again, I just ignored because I didn't want to think about it.
Right. Was there something that happened for you to say, okay, like I need to stop? Because for some people, like something drastic needs to happen. But like you were saying, like you weren't, nothing really occurred, like a DUI or anything like that.
Right. Well, so you know, when I was in my 20s, I drank a lot, and I had like no control over how my night was gonna go. It would just be like a gamble. It could be cool, could be a disaster. You know, like I had no sense of control. And there were lots of occasions where I was the drunkest person there or whatever, you know, but in my 20s, I was like, that's normal. I'm in my 20s. Like I went to college, you know, there are lots of different occasions. And then I worked for a grocery store for 9 years, and we'd work early shifts. And then we'd get off at like 1 or 2, and then everybody who worked the morning shifts would like go out drinking right away afterwards. It was like just part of the culture that I was in. It was really, it didn't feel like a big deal to me. There were times that I heard people talk about me, or I heard that someone had said that I drank too much, or that, maybe don't invite Summer because she always gets too crazy. Yeah. That kind of thing. But like I said, so after my oldest son was born, I got really bad postpartum depression. Okay. And I've struggled with depression and anxiety throughout my life. That's always been a thing for me. But after my oldest was born, it was really, really intensely bad. Mm-hmm. Like I was having a really difficult time just being alive, like existing. And I mean, there were a lot of occasions where things got really, really, really bad. And I had a baby at this point. And as I got into my 30s and I had the second kid and all of this stuff, that's when I really started to go like, okay, I know this is a problem. I know this is not okay. When I drink, like I said, I have no control over how it's going to go. Like, I just was completely out of like, it's a gamble. Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows if this is going to be fine? Who knows if I'm going to get crazy and start screaming or start sobbing or do something idiotic, you know? So that awareness increased more and more and more with me. And then I would have random times where I'd be like, okay, I'm going to not drink for the next 6 weeks, or I'm not going to drink until whatever occasion, like the 4th of July. I'll drink on the 4th of July, but until then I'm not going to drink. Or I just set up these random arbitrary things in my head, or be like, okay. And that was my way of being like, okay, well, I can control this. Clearly it's fine. But then most of the time I wouldn't meet those goals. I would be like, oh, well, you know, that was dumb. Like, why did I say that?
One week is enough.
Yeah, totally. And I would do that all the time. So that was happening more and more. And then the thing that really got me, so this had been in the back of my head for years. And while I didn't have any massive, like, losing my job, getting my kids taken away, nothing like that, I'd had a lot of really horrific times where I self-harmed, or I, you know, got into an insane fight with, like, whoever I was with at the time. Lots of just really, really horrible occasions, and, like, you know, cheating on people, just putting myself in risky sexual situations, like all sorts of things. Right. So I knew this was an issue, but I went to Vegas last January before the world blew up. So January 2020, I went to Vegas, and it was fine. I drank, got drunk, had fun, did the whole thing. But on the way back, I decided to, like, I went to brunch and had like mimosas and stuff, like, before I wasn't driving. And then stopped at State Line and gambled and drank some more. And then I had like a thing of vodka that I just kept drinking. And by the time I got home, I was so completely wasted. And I got home to my kids. Like, I got home, my mom was there with my kids, like, hey, and, you know, my kids were there, and I was wasted. And they'd never seen me like that. Like, I was most of the time since they were born, it'd be like after they went to sleep, or if I went out, or, you know, but not around them. There were times when I drank around them, but I was never out of control around them. But I was. And the next morning when I woke up, I was just so, like, that was, for me, I was like, I cannot keep doing this. I was so disgusted with myself. Like, for some reason, that really hit me.
How old was your oldest at that? He was like 7 or 6?
6. He's 7 now, so he was 6 at the time.
Did you notice like a reaction from him or anything?
Couldn't tell me. I don't remember. Yeah. You know, I just know it was the day Kobe Bryant died.
Oh my.
And so like I got home and like my mom was trying to talk to me like, oh my God, Kobe Bryant died. And I was like, that's all I really remember, and just sort of like stumbling into my room and like, so I decided to stop drinking. I decided like, this is it. And I was really nervous about it. But I told my mom and my sister, because they had been at my house when I came home. And I was like, you know, I don't want to talk about it, but I'm really deeply ashamed of how you saw the way I was when you saw me the other day, and I'm not going to be drinking anymore. So please don't ask me any questions. I texted both of them.
Mhm.
Like, please don't ask me any questions. Like, I really don't want to talk about it, but this is what I'm deciding to do.
Right.
And that lasted 64 days. And guess what happened in March of 2020? You know, the pandemic hit.
Oh yeah.
And I started working from home. My kids were being homeschooled. I was just like, everything was so different. I didn't know how to differentiate one day from the next. And so I was like, it was a really deliberate decision on my part too. It wasn't like even a slip. It was just like, I decided like, you know what? I'm going to drink again. Because
there's a pandemic going
Yeah.
on, and I'm working from home, and goddamn it, I can get away with this
yeah,
shit.
pretty much. And you know, I'm really good at rationalizing in my brain. Like,
course.
I'm being dramatic. It
Yeah.
wasn't that bad. It was fine. You know,
Yeah.
so I decided to start drinking again. Also, during those 64 days, I didn't have any community. I wasn't involved in like sober Instagram yet. I didn't do anything. I didn't have any support. I read like 2 Quit Lit books. That was about it. Like, I didn't have any context for other people in recovery or anything. So I was just there on my own, like miserable about it, pissed that I wasn't drinking.
Right.
Like, there was nothing
Mm-hmm.
to support me in that. So I just drank again, and at first it was like, oh, I'll drink on the weekends because that'll help me differentiate. I was very like logical about it. I'm like, okay, this will help me differentiate the weekends from the week. It'll be a good thing during this pandemic. It'll help me get this sense of like time and place that I don't have right now. It's
Yeah.
great. It's great. This is a good idea. This
It's
is
a good
healthy.
plan.
Yeah, I was
Your
like, this is a healthy
librarian in
thing to
you was
do.
like organizing everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm very, I'm very analytical. I'm a planner,
Yeah.
and I'm like to pride myself in my, I don't know. It's a bunch of bullshit, but in my mind, I was like, no, this is good. This is healthy. This is
Right.
like a good balance for my life right now.
Right.
And so I drank for another 8 months beyond that. And I gained a whole bunch of weight. It was 30 pounds more than I am now. Just from like drinking and never exercising and never going outside, never doing anything. I was depressed, But in the back of my mind, it's like, I think once you sort of start to wake up to what you're doing, once you face it once, like you can, or at least for me, I'll just speak for myself.
Mhm.
Like, I could never fully go back. I could never go back to the time before I decided to stop drinking. So even though I drank for those 8 months, I still don't feel like I went back to ground zero. I had learned things about myself. I had figured some things out. I knew that this was wrong. I knew I shouldn't be doing it. I knew it wasn't the right thing for my life. I knew that my life was better. I knew that during those 64 days that I was alcohol free, that I felt better, healthier. Like, I just knew. And so there was no going back for me. It was me like fighting against myself while I was drinking. There was no just going back to like, oh, no, this is fine. I mean, I might have told myself that, but I didn't really believe it deep down.
Mhm.
So I just, Halloween, my sister came over. We had like a little mini party. We drank a bunch. The next morning I woke up and I was like, I think I'm done. And there were like 3 White Claws left in the refrigerator, which I drank, which of course, I wasn't gonna not drink that.
Got to.
Right. Which, did nothing. Like, that's like drinking water for me. And then I was like, yeah, I'm done. And that was the last time I ever had any alcohol. And, the good news is I've done it really differently this time. And I feel really solid in my decision. I don't feel like I'm missing out. I don't feel angry that I'm not drinking. I feel good that I'm not drinking. the only part of me that ever wants to drink is the part of me that, like, I have a self-destructive side.
Yeah, of course.
And so
Got a shadow.
there's the part of me that, like, wants to destroy myself. And that's the only part of me that wants to drink ever, is that part of me that wants to destroy myself. There's no part of me that's like, this would be fun, maybe I could moderate. I know it wouldn't be fun. I know I can't moderate. I know none of that's gonna work. I know that I don't wish to return to just like, oh, I wish I could just be like anybody else. Because really, I believe, I don't think anybody should drink. I mean, it's a poisonous, addictive substance that's terrible for you. The American Cancer Association has come out and said there's no safe amount of alcohol to drink when it comes to cancer risk. There's a new study that came out about brain health and alcohol, and they're saying there is no safe amount of alcohol to drink when it comes to your brain health. Like, it's bad for you. It's really, really, and I know that. So there's no part of me that's like, oh, I wish I could just be like everybody else and just have a drink, because, I mean, that to me is like wishing I could just smoke cigarettes every once in a while. I'm like, nah, it's bad for you. It's gross. Like, why would I want to do that? So I know that on a logical level, but then there is that little dark side of me every once in a while that's like, fuck up your life, destroy everything, burn it all down. And that's the part of me that wants to drink.
How do you silence that motherfucking devil like on the side of your shoulder that's telling you to fuck up your life?
It's hard. I mean, I think that's been with me throughout my life. I come from a trauma background as a kid and different things that have happened throughout my life. And I was always a really high achiever as a kid. And as an adult, I mean, I have a master's degree. I've worked really hard to get where I am in life. Like, I was always that person like, oh, don't worry about me. There's all sorts of other things going on, but Summer's got it taken care of. Don't worry about me. I got it. Like, look over there, deal with that.
Right.
So that was always me on the outside, but then on the inside, there's this part of me that just doesn't want to be in control, doesn't want to have it all together, wants to fuck it all up, just wants to watch the world burn, Silencing that now, I mean, I know how much I have to lose. Like I said, I have 2 kids. I have, I've seen what being sober for the past 7 months has done for me. I know how much healthier I am physically, my mental health, like everything. I know what I stand to lose. So I just have to remind myself of that. It's not easy. It's not easy because it's a loud voice sometimes, but I've been able to make it shut up most of the time.
Right. So. I think that's incredible. And the first, I think, like 60-something days you said you were not drinking, but then you started drinking again. You said you had no form of support. You weren't on Instagram. Mm-hmm. What has changed from then and now? Like, you have some support now. What are some things you do? You watch the Grounded Phoenix podcast?
That's been my number one. Number 2. No, so I am part of a program called Tempest, and it is a recovery program. I attend almost every day. I go to a meeting for that online, and that's been huge. Like, I am probably one of those annoying people who just doesn't shut the fuck up because I always share, and I just because I get it out. I mean, if I let it stay inside me, it just poisons me. So I have that and a lot of feedback in that community. Sober Instagram has been huge for me as well. I've made friends. I have so many people that I could message at any time or call who are there to support me in that way. I decided to start an Instagram account just because I found myself following all these accounts about sobriety and being so inspired by them. And I have a personal Instagram account that's just like family and friends. It's private. And I found myself like, whenever I go on Instagram, I'm like, I don't want to look at pictures of people's kids and pictures of people's pets and vacations. Like, I just wanted to focus on the sobriety aspect. So I was like, okay, let me just create a separate Instagram account that when I want to focus on that, that's what I'll go to. And I started that about a month in. It was November 2nd is my sober date. And so it was like the very end of November or something like that when I started that account. And it's become a really important part of my life. in a weird way. It feels weird to say like Instagram is so important to my life, but it's introduced me to so many people. It's introduced me to so many communities. I joined a group called Sober IRL that is all about hosting meetups for sober women. And I volunteered to be the local lead for, I live in Long Beach, so it's people in Long Beach and all over LA have come to meetups, and so it's allowed me to make lots of in-person friends, and all of that support, all of that community has made all of the difference, because all of these thoughts you have, all of these random things that go through your mind when you're in recovery and when you're dealing with all of these things, it feels so isolating. It feels like you're the only one dealing with this shit, and then you get out there and you go, oh, this is a really common thing. Like, I'm not special in this, like in a good way, you know? It's like, this isn't just
you
a
don't want to be
problem.
special in that.
I don't want to be special in that, So I'm able to like know that I have so much support and other people who get what I'm going through. And that's been all the difference for me.
That's awesome. Talk a little bit more about the meetups. Is it like a meeting, or is it like where people meet up and do activities or have like a picnic or something?
Yeah, so it's for all walks of sobriety, or if you're sober curious, anything like that. And it's not like recovery meeting oriented. It's not like let's sit around and talk about, you know, our trauma and all of that, because you have other avenues to do that in. This is more just a social thing. Like, hey, this is a way to meet up with other people, be social in an environment where you're not going to have the pressure of alcohol. Alcohol won't be present. And we really I've only had 2 or 3 so far, because of the pandemic, that have been in person. I had one that was online. And so it's just sort of getting started, but it's been a really cool thing to be able to meet up with other people. And it's just, like I said, it's just a social thing. Just like we're so bombarded with alcohol everywhere you go. With the, you know, and I'm lucky and I didn't really have any friends. You know, I focused on my kids, and I focused on getting my master's degree. I went back to get my master's degree after my 5-year-old was born. Like he was 2 days old when I started my graduate program.
Oh snap!
You're
just a go-getter.
Yeah. And then I would, you know, drink at night or whatever. So I was really focused on all of that for a really long time, and I had friends, but I didn't have like a huge social life. So I never have really struggled with like, how do I tell my friends, how do I be around people who are still drinking, because I'm like, I just don't have that. So it's nice for me because I'm able to sort of start from scratch and just build sober friendships. And, you know, it's not like I wouldn't be friends with people who drink, but it's just not something I want around me. And like I said, it's not a good thing to have in your life. Like, I feel like usually people are either drink so little that they could take it or leave it, so why not leave it? Or they drink problematically sometimes. You know, it's like I just don't think there's any real reason to drink. And I don't say that in a judgmental way. Like, if people want to drink, that's fine. I still know, you know, I have family and other people that I'm around that still drink. But as far as, you know, friendships and the social things that I want to do now, it just doesn't interest me to be around it.
Right. No, and I feel that. And you make a great point, because same thing with like unhealthy foods. You know, we still do these things to ourselves knowing they're not good for us, but at the same time, like, I think a lot of this has to do with like programming and, you know, ads and this stuff. So like, it's just fed to us, and it's like, if you don't have like a real sense of consciousness and like knowing what's good and what's bad for you, and you're focusing on that, it can be very hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, once you stop drinking, like once I got sober, I really realized how much it is everywhere. It's in every book I read. It's in every movie I watch. It's ads everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. And you don't realize how pervasive it is until you remove yourself from that situation. You go, oh wow, this is just, you're constantly bombarded with it.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. What are some things that have come to light now that you're 7 months sober, both good and bad. But it's with something that has just like, yo, I didn't know that about myself. Like,
Oh gosh. I mean, I think the good and the bad have gone hand in hand because, I drank to bear the unbearable. I drank so that I could deal with life because I didn't know how else to do it, you know? So once I stopped, I had to deal with all of those things. Like I said, I have, certain traumatic things from my childhood, and I have mental health things that I struggle with, and everything from like I said, I weighed 30 pounds more than I do now. It's from my health and my physical, like not exercising, to my personal relationships, to my career. Like all of it has made me, now that I don't drink anymore, now that I'm not numbing out, now that I don't have this way to just not deal with things, I'm like, okay, I have to look at this. I have to look at what's making me happy, what I want out of life, what do I want to be, what do I want to surround myself with. I really had to examine these things because there's no way to escape it once you're, living in reality and you don't have substances that are influencing you. So it's been really hard. It's been an incredibly intense 7 months because, so many aspects of my life have had to change. And more will change in the future. Like I said, like even with my career, I don't know that I want to keep doing my career for the rest of my life. And I worked hard to get where I am, but it doesn't feel fulfilling in the way that I would like my career to feel. So that's been a major challenge. There have been a couple times where I've been like angrily saying to myself, like, God, I wish I never got sober because then I could just be, and that's like, not really, but it's just like a fleeting thought where I've been like, fuck this, like, this is so fucking hard. This is so much to deal with. Like, I have to change every aspect of my life in order to live this way. But ultimately that feeling passes very quickly and I'm like, okay, this is the mess that I have to wade through in order to get to this beautiful life that I know I have waiting for me. So it's been challenging. I won't say that it hasn't, but I know that I'm not just going to live some mediocre life where I, have a bunch of bullshit and then I work all the time in a job that doesn't make me happy, and I have personal relationships that don't make me happy, and then I die, and I think that's what was waiting for me if I had kept drinking, or something worse could have happened because things were progressing more and more and more, and who knows, I hadn't gotten a DUI yet. I hadn't lost a job yet. And, there's always that yet. So, facing all of that and dealing with it has been the most difficult thing that I've ever had to do. But it's also an amazing feeling because I know how strong I am. I know now I'm like, I can face anything. Like, throw anything at me and I'll be able to figure out how to do this. And I take so much pride in myself now, that I don't need these things to get through life anymore, and I don't look down on the old me that needed that, in a way. Like, I just wasn't ready, and I didn't have the coping skills that I needed to face life without it. And so in a way I'm like, okay, well, that's what you needed at the time, but you don't need that anymore.
Right.
So that's okay. I don't feel like shame and anger at the way I used to be or the things that I did when I was drinking anymore, because that's who I was then, that's what I needed at the time, but now I know better.
Exactly. Very well said. Now you went to school and you got your master's degree, and now you're talking about switching it up. Like, how does this happen? Like, you work so hard for all this, and then you're just like, you know what, this doesn't fulfill me anymore. And this is a subject that I really want to talk about a lot, because I feel like once that I stopped drinking and I got sober, I got really motivated to just find things that fulfill me and try to create income out of that. Mm-hmm. And most of it has to do with being of service with two people. So what are your ideas? Like, what direction are you going to go in?
When I figure that out, I'll let you know. I don't know. I don't really know. I mean, I know I just know that what I'm doing now isn't working for me anymore. I also know how important sobriety is for me and how important the sober community is for me. I would love to be able to be involved in that somehow. I don't really know yet at this point. But I'm excited to find out, and I'm also, it's kind of a neat thing for me because, like I said, I've always had this duality to myself of like, I have to be completely in control and have my shit together and be this high achiever, but secretly I'm gonna live this other life and be this fuck up. And now I feel like those two sides of me are like meeting in the middle, and it's like, okay, I don't always have to be in control. I don't have to have all the answers yet. I don't know everything yet. I only know that certain things need to change, and I know I'm on the right path because I feel it like deep in my heart. I know that I'm doing the right things now in order to figure out the next steps. I don't know what they are yet, but I know I'll figure them out because
you have faith.
Yeah, I do. And so, yeah, just letting go of that need to know everything now and be like, okay, well, what's the next step? What do I need to do? How do I make this happen? You know, letting go of that has been a very huge and difficult thing for me. It only happened because of sobriety.
Nice. Me and you have become really good friends before, recording. We've gotten in contact and we message almost daily. One thing that you always mention and you talk about is being in alignment. And things that, being aligned to like where you are, like what do you mean by that, and how important is it to you that things are aligned to like what you have in your life?
Well, I think that was so much of the pain that I was trying to cover up with alcohol, was that everything fell out of alignment in my life. I wasn't doing the right things, like whatever my purpose is, and I believe everybody has a purpose, whatever my purpose is, the reason I'm on this planet. I want the relationships that I have, the career that I have, all of these things to be in alignment with my purpose. And I feel like I was totally unconnected to that for so long, since I was forever, I guess, until I stopped drinking and really got into, got more in touch with my spirituality, I meditate every day, and all of these things that have really helped me connect with myself more, because I was so disconnected from myself and so disconnected from what I wanted or what I believed or any of that. So it's really important to me now that what I do is in alignment with my purpose. And I think everybody has an inner knowing. We all have it. Many of us ignore it. Many of us don't know how to tune into it, but we all have this sense inside of us of when something doesn't feel right.
Right.
Versus when it does. And so I just want to follow that inner knowing, follow that voice that knows when things aren't right and knows when things are. So. And
that voice isn't as loud as that devil. It's actually even quieter, but you really got to tune in and be like, what you say? What did you just say? Like,
yeah, well, you have to be purposeful about it. You can't just like sit there and be like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go about my life and I'm suddenly gonna magically know what the right thing to do is. I think you have to really be purposeful about it. That's why I think cutting, if you struggle with addiction in any way, like cutting that out, that silences that voice. That voice didn't exist when I was drinking.
Right.
I shut that voice up. I didn't want to hear that voice because hearing that voice means you have to change things, and changing things is really hard. So I wanted that. I didn't even want to hear that voice. So yeah, now I feel really purposeful about taking time to check in with myself really regularly. Anytime I make a new move, anytime things happen, I really try to like, okay, how do you actually feel about this? Does this feel right? Is this the right decision to be making? And that is leading me, I hope, in a good direction in my life.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it really is. I want to talk about fitness because, congratulations. You said you lost 30 pounds. That's big. And if you allow me, I would love to post a before and after picture on the video so people can check that out and be inspired, because I think that's big. And I think a part of, like, for me, being in alignment of like my purpose is being physically healthy. So what are some steps that helped you like get on that? Because I know it's easy to kind of plan it out and think about it, but like the doing part, what was like your way of doing things?
Well, so I first got into running after my 5-year-old was born. And because like I said, I had really bad postpartum depression after my 7-year-old was born. So when my 5-year-old was born, I was like, I don't want this to happen again. So I know, I hear tell exercise is good for your mental health. So I was like, okay, let's try running. And I got really into it for a while, and then I just completely stopped doing it because running hungover is not,
it's not the business.
it's not enjoyable.
Yeah.
So once I stopped drinking, I really, I did want to lose some weight. That wasn't my primary goal, and now I try not to focus on that aspect of it too much, like the number on the scale. But I knew that I wanted to get healthy. I knew that I had gained a lot of weight. I mean, I was heavier than I'd been when I was 9 months pregnant either time. So I was like, this is not ever how I've been. This is not how I want to be. So I knew running had done wonders for me before. And so I was like, okay, let's do that. So I started running again. And one of my closest friends that I have made through Instagram, she is incredibly fit person, and we go hiking together a lot. And that's another good thing about Instagram. Like, I followed her on Instagram. One day she put out on one of her stories, she was like, hey, anybody in the LA area want to go do a hike with me? And I was like, I will. And I'd never once talked to her before.
Right.
We'd never messaged. I don't even think I'd commented on one of her posts, but I was like, and we went on like a 10-mile hike, and we spent like 5 hours together, and we hit it off really well.
Awesome.
It turned out to be a really fantastic thing. So I go hiking a lot, and it's just been a really amazing thing because it's really helped ground me in my body. When I feel for so long I was just trying to escape my body.
Right.
Like I said, I was disconnected from everything. I was disconnected from like myself spiritually, and I was definitely disconnected from myself physically. When I would try to exercise, like I said, I'd do it for a while, and then I'd be like, it interfered with me drinking as much as I wanted to.
Yeah.
So that's been a really important part for me. I mean, when you exercise and you have those like feel good chemicals flooding your brain, you can feel it. That is an amazing thing, and so it's a really important part of sobriety for me. I don't know where I would be without adding that aspect of it into my life.
It's like a high within itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I feel, because sometimes I'm just like, I just don't want to feel normal. Like I'm just like, I don't want to feel like like on point, crystal clear. Like I want to feel something different. So I start working out, and that gives me like that euphoric feeling, that high. That I'm just like, okay, this is it right here. And I think that's like a good way to tune into like, I guess, not feeling normal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's totally like, I started running, and I would run short distances, and then I started increasing them more and more. And the first time I ran 10K, I was like, oh my God. And I remember like the feeling of like in my body, and like it really felt like a high, and like my brain, everything, I was just buzzing, and
Ooh, I like that.
I think that's probably why a lot of people who have dealt with addiction really enjoy fitness, because you get that feeling, and it's a healthy way to get that.
Yeah, and you talked about like not really focusing so much the number on the scale. And I know for me that I had a hard time doing that. Not only just focusing on the number on the scale, but like comparing myself to other people. Because everybody has different genetics. Everybody has like, I guess, their own things that can accomplish genetically. So like to somebody that's like having a hard time comparing themselves to other people, and they're down on themselves, like what would you say to them?
I mean, I think you just have to, the only thing you can do is try to, and this is such a cliche, but it's absolutely true. It's just you're the only person you need to compete against is yourself. You just need to try to be better than you were before. That's all you, because like my friend that I go hiking with, she's a completely different body type than I do. And if I look at like, and it's something I still struggle with. Like we went hiking on a couple days ago, and somebody took a picture of us, and I look at the picture of us together, and I'm like, oh, she looks so much. I can start to like examine it. I'm like, okay, but she's a different person. She's a different genetic makeup. Oh well, like that's why I really recommend. And even if you're not doing it for weight loss, like if anytime you engage in fitness, you're gonna notice physical changes in your body. So I really recommend like before pictures, like when you start out, because sometimes like if I have a couple days where I eat like shit or something, like I'll get a weird like dysmorphic thing in my brain where I'm like, I'm the same as before, I look the same, and then I like will look at a picture and go, okay, no, I'm not. No, I don't look like I don't. So it's really helpful to have that.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I had texted you, and I was like, dude, I just ate like a fat pig, and he's like, well, you got tomorrow, you know, clean it up, you're good.
Yeah.
You know, so thank you for that. That day that really helped me because I was man, I had to eat like 2 burgers probably that day and tacos, and I was all bad.
It happens sometimes, you know. It happens like even the other day when I went on that hike, I was so hungry afterward, and I stopped at McDonald's and I had like the giant fries and the burger and the giant soda, and I was like, it was like the best. I was so hungry. It was like the best meal ever. And you know, and then yesterday, the day after, I also like didn't eat that well, and so it's like it happens sometimes. But all you have to do is just get back on it, and it's okay. Find balance, you know, and especially when it comes to food. You know, it's like food is not something you can escape. You know, you don't want to be afraid of eating. And I love food. I love to eat. I love to cook. So I think it's a really nice thing to have in your life. Just, you know, make sure you get back on it. Don't do that all the time, and you'll be fine. Right.
Thank you for that, man. I really appreciate like your vulnerability and your tips and just your perspective and sobriety and everything. Before I let you go, as you know, I gotta ask you one final question, and I'm pretty sure you know that there's 3 things in life that I feel are guaranteed, and they're marked in our gravestone. That is the day we pass, the day we're born, and that dash in the middle, which represents, you know, the way we live our life. What do you want to be remembered by when you're gone?
Well, so I'm going to say this in a roundabout way. So kind of like how I did that. One of my kids has a really bad habit of when he gets angry, getting kind of explosive and sometimes saying like mean things that he doesn't mean. And especially now that he's getting older, that I'm really able to look at him and say, hey, look, like when he's in the middle of that angry, I'm like, look, I know you feel like you might have gone too far and you don't know how to pull back right now, but you can change it. You can change it right now. Let's make it better right now. I know you said some things you didn't mean. I know you feel bad, but let's change it right now. And that works with him a lot. So that's what I'd like to inspire in other people. Just like, hey, I know sometimes you feel like you've gone too far. I know it feels sometimes like you're on this road and you don't know how to turn around. You've already committed to this way of living. You don't ever have to stick with that. You can, at any time, you can decide, okay, right here is where I'm going to turn around and change. So that's what I would like to be remembered by, the fact that I was able to do that, and if anybody looking at me in my life can go, okay, doesn't matter how far down this dark road I've gone, I can decide to change it right now.